Welcome. It's time for us to have a sit down, a talk. You know, years ago I went on a deep search of knowledge, searching for the past. What happened in the past? Who are we? What are the different races? What happened in history? Why did things turn out the way they did? And hold up, fire truck. Cause I'm about to light this motherfucker on fire. Just keep it 100. And as I know you all are aware, when you search for knowledge, you uncover a lot of ugly truths, deep wisdoms, esoteric knowledge, things that some people may not want to uncover. But it's too late for me. I've looked where I wasn't supposed to look. I took that peek down the rabbit hole. Now it's up to you. If you want to take that journey with me, then we can take that journey together. And any information or knowledge or history or research that I share is never to divide us, but it's always to unite us. Now let us begin. Let's get this camera set up. It's first time for everything, right? Alright, we got that secured away. Let's get some sort of focus going on here. Yeah. Yeah. Every time I ask God, universal, whatever the hell I believe in anymore. Yeah, some people think I'm atheist now, but I know I'm not atheist. And as we take this journey and as you start to put the pieces together, you're going to start to understand what I mean when I say that I'm God. And you're going to understand yourself that you're God also. So let's go. I guess it's the first video. Alright. Let's get these technical difficulties handled out. Boom, boom. Whoops. Alright, so let's go. What are we looking at? I kind of wanted this video to kind of be surrounded around this topic, the Gates of Alexander. Some of you probably never heard of the Gates of Alexander. What is that? Where is that? What are you talking about? Alexander the Great? Yes, Alexander the Great. So supposedly, knowing me sticking my head in shit I'm not supposed to stick in, pause. I fell down the rabbit hole a little bit more and found out. Well, a lot of us are kind of finding out lately that the woke community, everyone's kind of waking up to a lot of things. I guess I know a lot of us are all kind of waking up to the knowledge that most of the world was indigenous, indie, black, heavy melanated cultures and population. And so I always going on this search of knowledge. I always try to separate who we are, what religions we should be worshiping, who is these gods, who are these people commanding different armies and things to go kill this army or move to this army or colonize this area in the name of God and religion. So falling down this rabbit hole, well, let me just, I guess, set up some type of pretense or context. All right, let's set some context up. Excuse the noise. Thug life. Don't worry, I got you. I'm gonna guide you where you need to go, what you need to know. All right, let me turn this mic off so we can get it started.
Again, I can't stress enough the importance of the historical timeline and how crucial this information is for us to know when many of these events occurred, the people involved, who is who, what is what, how and why, and when and where.
Damn, the whole time I was talking, the mic wasn't even on. Alright. So it's the first time I did that little intro or setting the context. My mic wasn't armed, so I had to do it again. So right now I'm setting up the stage and revealing evidence that pretty much many people awoke to the knowledge of that many of the globe was indigenous. Indi, meaning black, meaning heavy melanated, before the different races appeared. And we'll get into that even deeper later. But so, it's, even Europe, what I mean, is in the ancient Europe, Dark Ages, even up to what I'm finding out, to the late 1500s, there was very heavy melanated. And not just saying commoners, I mean in kings. People were ruling the entirety of Europe. So it was not exactly like the Hollywood movies that they give to you visually, the programming showing that originally it was all Caucasians there, all Europeans per se. So setting that context, we can go into the story of Alexander the Great, and then how we typically or assume that he's Caucasian, some type of Greek or Roman the leader, king, take them into war across Asia. But as we reveal and go deeper into the evidence and research, we can see that that is incorrect. That as the rest of Europe in the Dark Ages and way earlier and probably way after, that he was heavy melanated, dark skin. And we'll get into what bloodline and different things of how they got into Europe, and we'll discuss all that later as you hang along in these videos and you see. It's deep when you fall down this rabbit hole. Now let's go. Let's go a little deeper and we'll get into these notes. So the context is already set. Alexander the Great, black warlord or wherever he was, and we'll get to the gates of Alexander and explain why I wanted to bring this to you so deeply.
As we learned in Claim of Thrones Part 1, according to the historical account, Alexander the Great ordered the construction of a wall between the mountains of the Caucasus to seal and lock away the tribes of Gog and Magog. which included the tribes of the Alemanni, who were a confederation of barbarian tribes and the ancestors of the Indo-European tribes. It is very important to note the irony and the self-actualization of the term Indo-European. Indo, meaning I put, set or placed into or upon Europe. I insert my kind and kinsmen. I instill and introduce my sense of superiority and privileged nature. Indo. Indo figuratively means I impart or give to, apply to, impose on, attach to. I name after or for. I bestow. The barbaric and nomadic Indo-Europeans emerged from the steppes of the Siberian plains in the Caucasus regions during the 3rd to the 5th centuries of the Common or Christian era and invaded Europe. The Alemanni claimed the throne of the Roman province of Germania in the 3rd century of the Common or Christian era, and became known as the Germanic tribes, and they called themselves the Germans after hijacking the name from the Romans of Germania. Several of these now Germanic tribes or early Indo-Europeans branched off into sub-tribes. As we look at the invasions and usurps of the kingdoms and lands that were claimed by the ancestral Indo-Europeans, we can see who their descendants are today. The Germans who invaded Burgundy and called themselves the Burgundians are now the Swiss. The Franks who invaded Gaul, which became France, are now the French. The Lombards who invaded Italy are today's Italians. The Angles, Frisians, and Jutes who invaded Britain are now the English. The Suave are now the Portuguese. The Europeans were sealed behind a great wall or claim of many of the once melanated and swarthy kingdoms and thrones of Europe. Or claim the historical timeline tells us the specific lands and regions where these people originated from and inhabited, from the steppes of the Siberian plains to the Caucasus regions, and how these people were nomadic, known as barbarians, very warlike, and when they left the Siberian steppes and the Caucasus regions and began invading and usurping Europe and Asia, and ultimately invading, migrating, and usurping throughout the earth. Based on the historical accounts, there are several significant barbarian invasions to provide us a historical timeline of the invasions and usurps or claim of many of the once melanated and swarthy kingdoms and thrones of Europe. As we look at the many invasions and usurps committed by these barbarian tribes throughout history, we can now see who they were and who the descendants of these people are today. According to the historical accounts, Gog, Magog, and the ancestors of today's Germanic or Indo-Europeans were sealed behind a great wall between the Caucasus Mountains by Alexander the Great before his death in 323 BC, or before the Common or Christian era. During the 3rd, 4th, and 5th centuries CE, or the Common or Christian era, barbarian tribes of Germanic peoples invaded Western Europe and Great Britain, as well as Italy, Spain, Gaul, and North Africa. And the settlements of these nomadic or wandering barbaric people became fixed territories after usurping the kingdoms and castles and claiming the thrones of the once melanated and swarthy nobles and monarchs of Europe. Now, as I stated in part 1, the people of the Nord, or the barbarian tribes of Indo-Europeans, had no alphabet or written language before they invaded Europe and Asia. This is very important to keep in mind as we began to see the pattern of these barbaric and nomadic people claiming the thrones and naming themselves after the lands that they usurp. In the 3rd century of the Common or Christian era, the Alemanni, meaning all men or men united, a confederation of several barbarian tribes, captured the Roman province of Germania in the year 260. And these barbarian and nomadic tribes from the Nord named themselves the Germans after seizing Germania from the Romans. In the Battle of Adrianopolis, one of these now Germanic tribes that usurped the Roman province of Germania, the Visigoths, defeated the imperial army of Byzantium and attacked Constantinople in the year 378. In the year 409, Germans known as the Vandals, Alans, and Suevi invaded Spain. Then in the year 410, the Germans known as the Angles, Frisians, and Jutes invaded Britain and ultimately established control over modern-day England. And during the same time, the Visigoths were invading Italy and Spain. In the year 411, another Germanic Vandalic tribe of barbarians invaded and seized the settlements of Rabbithole, present-day Worms, and Speyer in Germany, and Strasbourg in France. However, before this time period, the regions of what is now France were known as Gaul and Burgundy. Once the lands of the Aedui, the ancient indigenous Celtic tribe of Central Gaul. In the 4th century, a barbarian Vandalic tribe of Germans invaded and seized Burgundy, and they called themselves the Burgundians. Byzantine-controlled region of northern Italy in 568. So as we can see, according to history, the majority of the invasions by the people from the north or Nord into Europe took place in the 5th century. And the people from the Nord were historically described as barbarians, savages, unsophisticated, illiterate, with no written language, warlike, and pagan. Interesting to note, the genetic history of Indo-Europeans confirmed that both East and West Eurasians were early exposed to significant Neanderthal admixture. According to the oldest modern European DNA samples, the Indo-Europeans, as well as today's so-called Native Americans, have Neanderthal DNA, and some of the oldest samples were found in the Denisova cave in Siberia. According to scientists, the Siberian ancestry reached the coast of the Baltic Sea no later than the mid-first millennium BC, or before the coming of Christian era, around the time of the diversification of West Uralic and Finnic languages. It also indicates an influx of people from regions with strong Western hunter-gatherer characteristics in the Bronze Age. According to many traits we now associate with modern Northern Europeans, like pale skin, blue eyes, and lactose tolerance. Today, the vast majority of the Siberian population, over 95%, is Slavic and other Indo-European ethnicities, mainly Russians, Ukrainians, and Germans.
Okay, we can stop there because I'm plagiarizing the shit out of both video. But what you see, what I'm trying to show y'all is, the gates of Alexander. What are the gates of Alexander? Like, that just struck me soon as when I was watching these videos. But yeah, check out his videos. His name is Medicine Man. Check him out. Claim the Thrones 2. Like, magnificent work he's doing. Like, the gems he's dropping is crazy. All right, so let's go. So, what do we want to start checking out? This is where it led me. The gates of Alexander. Why am I checking out the gates of Alexander? See, sometimes the universe just drops gems on you. You can't ignore it, man. You just gotta go in deep. Start looking. So we're gonna jump right in. Let's jump right in. The gates of Alexander was a legendary barrier supposedly built by Alexander the Great in the Caucasus to keep the uncivilized barbarians of the north, typically associated with Gog and Magog. And we'll get into that deeper. And as you know, people that's Bible junkies and stuff, they know about the stories and tales of Gog and Magog and different things. Of the north, from invading the land to the south, the gates were a popular subject in medieval travel literature, starting with Alexander Romance. You can check out the book and start keeping tabs on these timelines. 7th century. That's 700 AD. That's far away, but as you see in some of those pictures of the black indigenous Europeans, some of them things was documented or created in the year 1500. So that's interesting. So, all right, so let's keep going. The wall, also known as the Caspian Gates. Remember, I kept pointing to the Caspian Sea. Has been identified with the wall, also known as the Caspian Gates, has been identified with two locations. I'm high. Or the wall, also known as the Caspian Gates, has been identified with two locations. The past was Derbent, Russia. Every time I was reading down this, I just start clicking on each one, like Derbent, Russia. And as you see, every time I click on something, it's all going to start matching up. All going to start matching up what I'm trying to show y'all. Caspian Sea, Caucasian Mountains, Eurasian Steppe to the north, and the Iranian Plateau. It's a little bit above Iran and all that. And I'm trying to check out, and they're trying to identify. It seems though at times this is happening when this big mob, we're just gonna call them a mob, like when they was ready to break the fuck out and seize Europe. Everyone around the area start building gates around this, I guess, hard passageway around the Caucasus Mountains. Like, you can't get to the rest of Europe unless you get through these passageways for some reason. Like, I guess the terrain above the Caucasus Mountain is too hard to go all the way around. But we'll go into that even deeper later. Let's keep going. Tradition also connects it to the Great Wall of Gorgon, because it's going to be naming like 2 or 3 different walls, and there's probably like 2 of them. These fortifications were historically part of the defense lines built by the Sasanians of Persia, while the Great Wall of Gorgon may have been built by the Parthians. Basically, Persians on one side. I should bring up the map and stuff, but I'll get into that later. A similar story about such wall is mentioned in the cave. Basically, Islam tales, stories of history. Gog and Magog were walled off by Dul-Qarnayn. I'm gonna be butchering these names, so bear with me. Possessor of the 2 horns, kind of like saying he's possessor of like 2 of the gates. A righteous ruler and conqueror who reached the farthest point of the earth. The barrier was constructed with metal. They might be talking about Alexander the Great, so keep in mind there. Righteous ruler and conqueror who reached the farthest point of the earth. The barrier was constructed with metal iron sheets like red flames. We'll go into that later. I got it all down, the size. They were describing the heights and the length of the gates, how thick they were, what they was made of. All right. The name Caspian Gates really applied to the narrow region at the southwest corner of the Caspian Sea, through which Alexander actually marched in pursuit of Bessus, and we'll start going to all that now, known by his throne name. Basically, Alexander was beefing with the Persians. We'll see later why. They was basically beefing over, pay me for guarding these gates. Hey, I'm guarding these gates, keeping the mob from getting in. So y'all should be paying us. Different areas should be paying us. Let's fight over it. Control the gates. After the Persian army had been defeated that made me go magically think the Lord of the Rings. Imagine you have control of the gates, and anytime you can release the mob on your enemy. Open the gates and release them on my enemy. So it might have been a tool too also. So let's go. Darius III, after the Persian army had been defeated by Alexander the Great, blah, blah, blah. I shouldn't be worrying about that. According to the historian, the people Greeks called Sicilians were known among the Jews in Europe. More Jews. We'll go into that more. Blackamoors and all that stuff, which is true to all that. And Magagites, the descendants of Magog in the Hebrew Bible. These references occur in different works. The Jewish War states that iron gates Alexander erected were controlled by the king of Hyrcania of the south edge of the Caspian. It's basically 2 seas on both sides of these Caucasus Mountains, and they have gates on all sides of them, trying to block passageways into the rest of the world, basically. Blah, blah, blah. Allowing the passage of the gates to Alans, which Josephus considered a Scythic tribe. When you start, I can't sit down and get all the light bulb popping in the head, but if you sit down and track all these names I'm saying, it's going to all land. You can be like, oh shit, like it's going to go all back to all these videos going to connect, trust me. Resulting in the sack of Medea. Let's keep going. Giving answers to the Sicilians as descendants of Magog, son of Japheth, which I'm trying to get to where the Caucasians come from. How did they come into being? Because we start to uncover that all indigenous all over the planet were melanated. So we'll go into that deeper. Also, the theories of albinoism and Neanderthal crossbreeding. But one giving ancestry of Sicilian descendants of Gog, son of Magog, because as a biblical, they say that Japheth went on and sprouted India and Asia and Europe. So the sons of Japheth is Europe and India and Japan and Mongols and all that sorts, which we'll get to who these people are that they're trying to lock up. A lot goes into it. All right. The gates also mentioned in Procopius' History of the Wars mentioning the Caspian Gates, mentioning about conflicts between two parties, who's guarding the gates. Let's keep going. Basically, just a bunch of story of these gates. Also interesting that I was looking into it, that the Great Wall of China was basically built for the same reason, but it wasn't so close to the Caucasus Mountains. It was closer to China. They were probably a couple years later. They was like, "Yo, it's going the fuck down over that area, and they coming our way, so we gotta build our wall too." So keep in that mind too. When I'm gonna go over the dates the Great Wall of China was built. All right, I started going into different things, trying to get a glimpse what the gates probably looked at. Here's the Caspian Gates. It looked more like a city though. Here's the Caspian Sea, what it's by. Let's look at these the gates in Durban. This looks pretty looks pretty hard to get around. But again, I was thinking in my head, how come? What type of wall can't they just walk around, or like, what is it like blocking them? And we'll get to that more. How Alexander at the time was doing a lot of archaeological masterpieces with towers and gates and walls, and that was their thing, I guess. Whoever Alexander was rolling with. But let's go back. I'm trying to drop off information super fast without going in the deep, because I can go in deep in each of one of these links and you'll be like, oh shit, oh shit, oh shit, oh shit. It's going to say the same thing. Same here. Caspian Sea is on one of the sides of the mountains. Europe and Asia east of the Caucasus, west of Broad Steppe in Central Asia. Wall of Gorgon. It's looking like passageways. I was trying to figure out, like, well, damn, like they must be building a crazy ass wall or something. Like why can't they just march over the mountains? And we'll look at that. I did all the research on that, on the highest points of the mountains, and it's just and shit. They locked the motherfuckers in. Like, I don't know what was going on with that part. And it's interesting way there was, and we connected back to the Bible with the Gog and Magog, and I guess that's all in this first part. I want to just throw at y'all. Y'all can check out the link. It's easy. Gates of Alexander. And it's all going to link back different empires over the times. So we're going to check out the dates and why, like, let's go down to some notes. Let's fuck your heads up. I got some notes for you guys. So we rocking, man. This shit deep. So let's get into it. As I already tried to go over with y'all, it was looking like it was heavily melanated in Europe, even up to the year 1400. And we're going to get to going a little deep about what I'm talking about. The Gates of Alexander / the Caspian Gates. I started looking up, where is Alexander? It seeming that in my notes, which I can go through and all that shit of, if you go through that whole link of that Wikipedia, this is my notes of all them links I clicked on telling the tale. And you get it down the same way if you want to seek the truth. All right. As you can see, the Caucasus Mountains are in this area. They were building gates on this side and this side around both these seas to prevent them from, I guess, getting up higher or getting up lower and just straight taking Europe on this way or in this way. Supposedly Alexander probably popped up with his crew, gave them all that smoke, and they had to fall back in there. And I guess they started building a wall. It make me think about the stories of 300, and they were saying they was blocking a passageway, that the whole army. There's a lot to the stories and folklore that they're dropping to you that if you keep up, you can get it down pat. It's easy. So I started checking in. Where's Alexandria? Because it seemed like they were building the city of Alexandria near these gates. And I was wondering, like, so what happened? What made these gates fail? And it would seem like I was coming across in 365 AD. The 3rd century. Keep an eye on that date. That a tsunami or earthquake happened. And you can look all that up yourself. I'm not gonna hold your hand through all of it. And I was like, damn, like, and it started making me think about the Noah flood or the disaster. Like, man, what happened? Why did the gates fail? So Alexander built the wall to stop a horde. If you go in deep and do your research, you'll see that the horde was also referred to as the Hun from escaping Caucasus Mountains. He died Alexander supposedly died 3rd century, around 300 AD. And Otto, the German king, was crowned emperor of Roman Empire around 962 AD. So around the time around 400, 365 AD, the gates failed. In between them years, they went back and forth of who gonna guard the gates, maintain the gates. So I guess it took around about a good 600 years in that time frame from them to finally seize Europe, get it strong, because he was crowned emperor, a German king, Otto the German king. If you go into deep in them links, you'll see that name Otto pop up, Ottoman Empire. All right, we can go in deeper. So these gates was locked away 10 barbaric tribes. We'll look at the list. You've seen the list in the video. But how I wrote down, like, how was a single massive wall hold back people on a continent? Like, how can hold back 10 tribes? Like, a massive wall? That wall must have been massive. Like, I was doing a lot of research and trying to get the measurements of this wall. It seems that the wall was built 300 to 700 CE. I don't have any pictures of walls, but let's see what we can get. But you've seen the pictures where I was like, you can go into deeper. I'm going to go through my notes. The wall was built 300 to 700 CE or AD. It was 3 to 4 different walls on different points. I guess most of the walls, I think this one describing one of the walls, but give a picture of what they would need to do, how big it need to be. The walls were said they would be like 25 miles long. Like, it's immediately started making me think about Trump. And then how Trump be dropping gems probably too, like, build the wall. He probably referencing, build the wall to keep the motherfucker a bunch of invasion of another culture, species, race out. So the walls would be 25 miles long, 65 feet tall. 65 feet tall and 10 feet thick. 10 feet thick. Like, that's ridiculous. That's like some 300 monster trying to keep a monster out the fucking battlefield type shit. And they were saying, I think they're describing mainly the Caspian Gates, but it's mainly the gif of it, how thick that shit probably gotta be. It was located, these gates, the Caspian Gates, they used to call it, I guess, the breast of the North. And I was writing down different things. What happened at the Armenian War? We can go deeper into that later videos. When was the Armenian War? And I was going in the deep. Why the fuck can't you get through if they build gates here? Why the fuck
Why you can't just say fuck it? We're not gonna go this way. Let's just walk around or something. Go all the way around. Let's go through here. See, but I think what it is this terrain, the mountains. You can't just easily walk through here. And so it was passageways along the shorelines of these seas that they built giant walls. I guess giant walls in certain areas. And the Persians down here, and different, and the Greeks and the Romans was guarding them, blocking them. And
So I'm looking here, and I did some research at the Greater Caucasus Mountains as high as
2 miles. So I guess you had to go trek up 2 miles to get over this.
So that's pretty interesting. It's fucked up. All right, that's good going through notes.
Go through notes. Let's go. Let's keep paying attention to all these maps.
Maps, you can look all this up. This ain't nothing. It's easy to get your hands on. I'm just like stumbling upon this shit like while I'm high. I'm not even really going heavy. So it was like, ooh, so was they coming from underground? So we'll get an eye on that too. I wasn't going deeper on later ones about around what year was Jacob Yakub in the Bible is, and I know people when they hear me say that they already know I'm going there with that. But let's keep going in deeper. I'm trying to like nail these dates down to get an understanding of when this stuff happened, why it happened,
How long ago it was. You know,
how long ago it was, who are we, what's the separation, what's the connection with the Bible, and we want to go into deeper later on Shem, Ham, and Japheth, and because I personally don't believe that we are Ham, and those who know what I'm talking about know what I mean. I don't believe we're Ham. I believe we're maybe before that, but we're going to deeper that because we may be Shem, like they say, but I don't believe we're Ham. We'll go in extra deep on that later. I can go right in deep. So if you're keeping up, I'm dropping some gems. I'm dropping them all over the place. I'm scattered, but just a little recap. Alexander the Great. Sound like he was great. That we just put in a little recap. That nothing too serious. It's normal what you see on normal in this era. Colonization, and it's like when you conquer someone, you assimilate their culture. So as we're gonna go on later and deeply see on some things I'm gonna share with you, that we're all one and the same. So in a way, we're all coming back together. So I'm going to show you how I'm using all this to come back around to dismantle religions. And you'll understand it later when I finally get to those religious videos. I'm going to dismantle all of it so we can stop fighting over the wrong things and unite and go against who really is keeping us divided. So there's a lot of notes I took down. Was trying to research real heavy into the Baltic Sea, the Dominici, Georgia, where Homo erectus first ended up. We're going to go into the 3 different stages of human, and they were saying there's like 8 to 10 of them, but variations. But the main 3 are the main 3 we're going to concentrate on. So we'll go into more videos and let it fuck with your head, and then I'm gonna come back and start showing you what I mean by all this.
It all started in India, when more than 100,000 years ago, a new species arrived, The color of their skin showed us that they were of African origin and were later called the Homo sapiens. Homo sapiens were very few at the time and lacked speech, so they wore necklaces that carry information. For example, a certain combination of beads can mean something, and it was these beads that helped us first communicate and form alliances. When they arrived in India, the rest of Asia was already occupied by the Homo erectus, a different species of humans. Fossils of the Homo erectus show that the species lived in numerous habitats across the globe, including South Africa, Kenya, Spain, China, and Indonesia. They were alive for 1.8 million years, but during their later years of life, they met the Homo sapiens, and that's when they got competition because they weren't just facing a different species, but they were going against a species that was smarter than them. Along with these two human species, the famous Neanderthals also came into existence more than 1 million years after the appearance of the Homo erectus and right before the appearance of the Homo sapiens, until they became extinct with the advent of modern humans 28,000 years ago. The Neanderthals were originally dark-skinned, but in time their skin grew lighter due to the exposure of climate change. In this video, we are going to compare just the 3 given human species, but if you would like to know more, check out our channel as we have already named, listed and described more than 10 different types of human species for you. Homo sapiens were obviously the only human species to survive, but between the other two, Homo erectus was the species that lived and survived on Earth the longest, whereas
So keep in mind these 3 basically strains of humanity: evolution or intervention, or I'm going deeper on that with the Anunnaki, and we'll go into deeper on that on creation stories, but that's another video. But I'm trying to, all these videos are going to connect what I'm locating and pinpointing what I'm getting at, and I'm trying to find the players in the game, the pieces on the board, so I can operate better, so we can actually fight a war that is actually happening, but it's not what you think. But we're all together and we're fighting each other for some weird reason. So let's keep breaking this down.
Keep very mindful of
These 3 strains, 3 different times. I'm going to match them up. I'm going to match it all up, trust me.
amongst the 3, Homo sapiens were obviously the smartest. Evidence show that the Homo sapiens even used fossilized ostrich eggshells to store their water. This was because to survive along with the Homo erectus, they had to learn to anticipate and plan their proper survival. Talking about intelligence, let us look into their brain size. The modern man has a brain size of about 1350 cubic centimeters. The Neanderthals had a brain size of 1500 cubic centimeters, and the Homo erectus's brain size was about approximately less than 1000 cubic centimeters. This was mainly because to the known fact that people living in cold habitats always have a bigger brain or cranial size than those living in warmer places. Coming to the body structures, Homo erectus was the first of our relatives to have human-like body proportions with shorter arms and longer legs relative to its torso. Whereas the Neanderthals, although they are also a close relative, their limb and torso proportions were very different from that of the modern humans as well as the Homo erectus. They were much shorter and thicker with longer hands and big flaring nostrils to breathe cold air more easily. With all these differences in cranial and body structure, all 3 of these species walked in an upright position. And just like the Homo sapiens, both the species lived in small groups or as what we call families. Studies showed that the Homo erectus even cared for the sick and the weak, which means they had some sense of empathy. they were also the first human species to systematically track their prey through scent, sight, or signs. Now, you must be wondering if they had any separate eating habits. Before we come to that, let me tell you that the Homo erectus and Homo neanderthalensis had bigger teeth than us but smaller than the earlier human species. Homo erectus liked their food red and raw, although they were the first species to use fire. Some information even said that there were traces of vitamin A poisoning due to the excess consumption of animal liver. Coming to the Neanderthals, research shows us that they ate a lot of meat, and from some of the starch remains found in their teeth, they may have eaten plants too. Some archaeologists even said that they may have boiled foods in birch bark twisted into trays. Last, but the most important aspect of living is how did they protect themselves and how did they hunt. Homo erectus were the first to develop the spear, but even though they may have developed the first weapons, they were not able to use it because they lacked the ability to twist their shoulders. So unlike the modern man, their palms face forward instead of hanging sideways. Since the Neanderthals came after the erectus, they already had the spear developed for them, so they only modified them to be more useful. Besides the wooden spear, which they mostly used to stab big animals, they also had hand axes and tools made of sharp stones. Humans though, or the Homo sapiens, came up with the idea of a slingshot. Like they say, there may be more than one spear, but there will always be more stones. These slingshots can be very dangerous and cause serious injuries and can even kill if the stone hits a critical part of the human body or
Alright, I'm gonna drop a gem right there for you. Check out how they were describing how the different they basically saying Homo sapiens were a little bit smarter. We're gonna go in deeper on that. Like maybe someone designed them a little differently, upgrades or whatever you want to call them. Homo sapiens, they're kind of saying that the Homo sapiens kind of stepped the game up and start getting slingshots. And it's funny that she threw this picture in of David and Goliath's story. And we're kind of going to start to see of who the Anunnaki, who the Bible were describing that they created. And I'm going to try to link that the Anunnaki, when they finally intervened and created a new upgrades, they created the Homo sapiens. And that's when we start getting into the era of the Bible, what was going on, what was happening with the Bible. And as we all know, in Genesis, when Cain was kicked out of Eden, he said, yo, where am I going to go? You kicking me out of Eden? Someone might find me, or basically someone's out there. There are people out here outside of Eden. Who are those people? So we're going to get in deeper of who are those people. And it's like saying, hey, the Homo sapiens were leaving out, but there were different other forms and grades of humans that were out there, like the Neanderthals and the Homo erectus. And we'll get into that even deeper. So let's continue a little bit more.
or the head. All that information is a lot to take in, right? One crazy fact I would like to add is that some ancient DNA of humans or the modern man showed some trace of Neanderthal DNA, which means that the Neanderthals and Homo sapiens did not just coexist, but they even mated with each other. So thanks for watching, guys. Do drop in your thoughts and opinions in the comment section below, and do not forget to hit the like and subscribe button. See
Hello! Welcome. Neanderthals are believed to have coexisted with modern humans for tens of thousands of years. Before the early 2010s, scientists were conflicted on the question of whether Homo sapiens ever interbred with Neanderthals. But since then, multiple studies have shown an incredible overlap between Neanderthal and human DNA. In fact, evidence shows that Homo sapiens not only met Neanderthals, they also slayed them, ate them, and from time to time, got it on with them. Today, we're going to take a look at whether Homo sapiens really mated with Neanderthals. But before we get started, be sure to subscribe to the Weird History channel and let us know in the comments below what other early human topics you would like to hear about. Okay, I'm a Neanderthal man, you're a Neanderthal girl. Let's watch a Neanderthal video of this Neanderthal world. Movies and cartoons tend to make Neanderthals look significantly different from Homo sapiens, but the truth is, there wasn't much difference between the two groups. While Neanderthals were slightly stockier and had thicker bones, the two were actually quite compatible in other regards. In fact, they were so compatible that according to one study, on average, up to 4% of an average modern human's genetics can be traced directly to the Neanderthals. While the Neanderthals may have vanished as a separate species right around 30,000 years ago, this study provides some solid genetic evidence that they were getting it on with prehistoric Homo sapiens while they were still around. Homo sapiens and Neanderthals most likely mated and fought each other, but otherwise, the two groups might have been nearly indistinguishable when they coexisted in Europe and the Middle East. That's because Neanderthal DNA is almost identical to human DNA. In fact, Homo sapiens and Neanderthals share 99.7% of their DNA. That figure makes Neanderthals much closer genetic relatives to modern humans than primates like chimps, who share 98.8% of their DNA with humans. The Homo sapiens and Neanderthals also crossbred, which introduced even more Neanderthal DNA into the modern human genetic pool. Recent scientific evidence suggests that Homo sapiens and Neanderthals interbred at several times and in several places over the millennia. The earliest of these mixings may have occurred over 100,000 years ago, when some relatively smaller groups of Homo sapiens first started leaving Africa. Homo sapiens are then believed to have started migrating from Africa in significantly larger numbers, approximately 60 to 65,000 years ago. While they spread to the Middle East and Europe, they inevitably encountered Neanderthals in greater numbers. And while the two groups had their share of conflicts, no doubt, the genetic findings make it clear that they were also mating by this point. It is now widely believed that this interbreeding with Neanderthals likely shaped the DNA of subsequent generations of Homo sapiens. Homo sapiens got around. They migrated all over the world, and they sometimes interbred with other hominid species. For this reason, almost all modern humans carry some small amount of the Neanderthal genome. However, there is one group that shows absolutely no evidence of interbreeding with Neanderthals: people with solely African ancestry. Yes, because sub-Saharan Africans rarely encountered or interacted with Neanderthals, they never had a chance to mingle their respective genomes.
Alright, time me to drop some gems. So what they're meaning there is, there were like three sets around this area, the main three groups. What he just said right there, the Homo erectus. What I'm seeming like I'm finding out in the research is Homo erectus came first out of the three groups. They were the more melanated ones. They were find something. They were the first group. The first, they say that all around the equator is where the first group, the heavy melanated, the first humans migrated from. When people were trying to put this together, we're looking at it as just one group of first humans. It was like 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. A lot of different sets of upgrades and different variations and creations of them. So the first ones was Homo erectus. This is what my theory, I believe the Homo erectus is the ones that, I don't know where the map is at. Homo erectus came up out of Lower Africa. How's my map at? All right, let's go. As you see on the map, Homo erectus, they see mostly a lot of green.
They the first ones that left. And we look at the dates here that they're trying to show us that how far back Homo erectus they're looking saying is the first, but these dates could vary. But the first ones, Homo erectus, left out of the. They're saying that all three of these variations of humanity came out of the same area, which we all know, and we're all focused on Ethiopia and Nubia and what's going on. So I believe these first ones, Homo erectus, were heavily melanated, the darkest ones. They the ones that migrated up to Egypt. They were the Egyptians. They were the ones that people keep trying to say, that's Ham. That's Ham. I'm not really sure right now. That's Ham. That's a later topic. But the Homo erectus went up. Then the Homo erectus went all across India. That's why you see the lowest Indians, India, are dark, or the original Hindus are Indi. Indi meaning black. So he went all up through here, dropped down through here, probably down Australia. We all know that their indigenous Australians were dark and crispy. But I always try to say, check the hair texture. As they start going through here, the hair texture start changing and getting more straight or finer. It was still dark, but we'll talk about that later, what they were being mixed with or what was going on, what the fuck was going on. So we want to look at even further how we say how they're uncovering things of how Japan and Russia and Siberia was originally heavy melanated, dark indigenous people. Because as you see, Homo erectus, and when they left out of all those thousands of years, they traveled all kind of circumvent right along the equator, the darkest spots. They love the sun. The sun does something different than when you're melanated. When you don't have that gene mutation, it absorbs the sun different. It's a different, something going on different in there. We're going deeper. So all right, let's get off Homo erectus. So they the first ones. They the Africans. They aren't per se the African Americans and where we're at in America, the indigenous native blacks of America. I'm getting close to on point here that they are not us. They are different. They are us because we mixed and mingled so much over this damn time, but they aren't us. So Homo erectus left out of that spot. Travel all around the world, different things, just chilled in this area. Next is seeming like all my research is coming up that the Neanderthals were next to come out of nowhere, and we're getting to that later. How you even have a lot of white supremacists and Karl Marxes and all those crazy dudes that's trying to push the white supremacy. They named Africa. The Neanderthal has a strain that is described as an Africanus. So they on point with they're trying to say that we came out of Africa too, or whatever. As you want to see the pictures in Genesis, it looked like cavemen were getting kicked out of the Garden of Eden. So we're going deeper into that. I'm dropping gems. Just pay attention. So they came out of this area also. The Neanderthals. Where they came from underground, from where they evolved from, no one knows. The same way no one knows how Homo erectus, the heavy green dark first ones, got out of there. So the new one is the Neanderthals. Neanderthals, as we know, you lose your melanin, it's a protection from the sun. So they had to leave Africa. They couldn't stay in there. The skin cancer is too much. It's just unbearable to make that your homeland. So in the time when they was getting together, they got out of there too. And they start going to this area where it's seeming like maybe the first place they touched down to is, what do we have here? The Caucasus Mountains, between the two seas. And we'll get into that later, what I'm trying to get at. So Neanderthals came second. They kind of held all this area. This was their land. They held it down. This was them. Ain't nothing wrong with that. Then we want to come to the newest upgrade of human, the Homo sapien. What I'm trying to get at with
the creation story in the Bible, of the ancient Sumerian creation stories, the Hebrew and the Sumerian, that they're the same thing. They're the same people. They're the same gods. I'm going to dismantle religions later with all this information I'm dropping on you. So, they went to this area. Homo sapiens popped up next out of this area and started leaving this area as well. As you want to start to see the trails and the colors, the darker grays are new. They're probably trying to say Homo sapiens was maybe before, or no, but as we see in the research, Homo sapiens came last. They left out the area. This where I believe, I'm trying to locate which strain of human was the albinos. And I believe the Homo sapiens was the one that ended up with the albinoism mutation, as I'm going to connect it to Jacob and Esau. For one of them was albino. They come from a lineage of albinos popping up. And as we know, that lineage is traced back to Noah. Now I'm trying to get you to understand what the Bible was trying to tell you. The Bible is only describing one creation story. And a little bit of mixed up of a little bit of white supremacy trying to say in the picture that Neanderthal was the creation story. But that was not. And now you see in the Bible pictures that they left out of there. That wasn't them. Creation story in the Bible and the Enoch was the Homo sapiens. Homo sapiens were the upgrade. They were the ones that we breathe life into you. We give you a different consciousness, maybe. I don't know. Or maybe I can connect it and we understand it more. The soul, maybe it's a different, God breathed a different soul in them. But I believe all three of them have some type of celestial, divine, godly creationism in it. But I'll get down to that later. So Homo sapiens left. Albinoism mutation happened within them in India, around in this area. It happened, probably start happening here, but they had to migrate. It's too hot. Same as the Neanderthals had to get out of there. It was too hot, because they say the early Neanderthals were dark skinned, but the piece is telling you Neanderthals were not heavy melanated. They had to get out of there. The Homo sapiens, the albinos that happened within the Homo sapiens group, they had to get out of there. They go to India. And somewhere in India, somewhere in India is where we get the albino Dravidians. That is one theory of where we're going to get one of the mutations. They're basically what I'm going to get at and describe the Europeans of today were different mutation strains and these three upgrades, these grades of humanity. And when two of those different mutations within one of these three came together and had sex and interbred, it created monsters. Or we would call them Nephilim. Because one of these were created by the Anunnaki and the fallen angels, or all three of them, or one of them survived the flood and got to the Caucasus Mountains. And I'm going deeper on that because going deeper on the info that Noah's Ark is settled in Mount Ararat, Georgia. Caucasus Mountains. So it's kind of like that alone just shakes up religion so much that you would say that all of humanity came out of Noah, when we know the home of modern day Caucasians come from Caucasus Mountains. It's in their name. No one's denying it. We know this, but we're going to go into the stories Because this shit really is a movie. This shit, that Lord of the Rings shit, that's really real. This is the story. They put it in your face, and I'm just going over it with you. Because actually, I think it's pretty fucking cool. And I'm going to go even deeper on my ideology of why certain tribes of the Caucasian did so many horrible things of slavery, because maybe at a time we were shitting on them. Maybe at a time we were locking them away in caves. I mean, they probably was wilding the fuck out. I mean, true, giants and monsters and shit, them Greek mythology monsters, that's where they were coming from. Maybe, I mean, you had to lock them away. But a lot of times, karma comes back around, as in karma's going to come back around again. As we see in some of the revelations and prophecies and things, then that the children of Israel and Hebrew, the real ones are the Phoenicians. Because at first I'm like, the Phoenicians and the Hebrews and the Islam and the Jews, ancient ones, they could not have been black. They came from the line of Noah. But as we can go in deeper, we're going to see that the Anunnaki may have been black. And which all the original species may have had some type of, it's nothing racial, it's just genetic, of absorbing the sun, of absorbing the different stars and minerals. So I used to think, damn, black people can't have came from the Caucasus Mountains. Something wrong with that. But we can look and see that we weren't the dark Homo erectus, but we were dark. If you want to say Shem is we people are waking up and saying, oh, the Hebrew Israelites were black. Shem, they say Ham went on to Africa, but I believe the Homo erectus was already there. And as we see, Ham, what I'm trying to explain to you, was part of Homo sapien strain. I believe Homo erectus was the ones that built the pyramids. Homo erectus were doing a lot of those things. It's a difference. Also, Shem went into Egypt and learned from Homo erectus. Learn how to build pyramids. Learn how to do different things. And I'm going to get to that later. What I mean, that there are pyramids all over the world. Who were building them people? I believe the Shem line in the Homo sapiens was doing that. Because they learned from Homo erectus, was building them pyramids. They learned. And I believe the Homo erectus were getting taught by the Anunnaki also. So it wasn't like they were learning anything different. They were just learning different eras in technology as we're going through, and all the three strains were combining. All right, so let's go in further deeper. So, as when I'm trying to hurry up and break down to you if I get back into some more videos for you. Homo sapiens left. Homo sapiens was most likely created by the Anunnaki. They were different, they were smarter. They went and they mixed in there. The albino versions of them broke off. And as we know, India has the same type of caste system and racial supremacy of treating the blacks wrong, and the lighter you are, the better you be treated. So that's where we kind of going to see the white supremacy comes from, because part of the mix of the European Caucasian is mixed with a bit of the Homo sapien albino. So as we see, the Homo sapien albino goes, which the Homo sapien was created by the Anunnaki. That's big shit. That's big shit. They start going over and start wandering towards those mountains in the Caucasus, where the Neanderthals are at. So all these eras and these times, we have interbreeding with all three of these. So this is where the races are being created. You can't see in today's time, because in today's time we're so intermixed. You cannot see the genetic differences except in the extremes of the genetic mutations of the eyes, hair, and skin of the Caucasians, or the ones who suffer from the albino mutation, or the ones that are come a little bit through the lineage of the Neanderthal.
So back to it. As we see here, all these, the British, the Italian, the Arab, the Indian, the North Indian, the Afghan, the Pakistan, the Sand Indian, it's kind of blurry, North African, all the Arabs, they're all the same. But the Arabs are more from the Homo erectus. But, as I said, the Homo erectus started mixing with the Homo sapien and albino, and then they went in and mixed with the Neanderthal in the caves of Caucasus area. So let's start chipping away at this, because we already know where I'm getting at. We're gonna go any deeper. I'm glad you're with me. I'm rocking out. We in an hour. I'm gonna wrap this up in about 30 minutes. Let's go. Boom.
As recently as 2010, scholars believe that interbreeding between Homo sapiens and Neanderthals likely only stretched back about 60,000 years or so. That was about the time when Homo sapiens left Africa and slowly began to spread throughout the Middle East and Europe. However, that theory created a very interesting mystery. Namely, if Neanderthals and Homo sapiens didn't interbreed until 60,000 years ago, how did a Neanderthal living in southwest Germany 100,000 years ago have Homo sapien mitochondrial DNA, or mtDNA? The answer to the mystery was finally discovered in 2017, when research revealed that a female human in Africa had mated with a Neanderthal male over 220,000 years ago. This coupling spread mtDNA to an entire lineage of Neanderthals, who may have met Homo sapiens in Europe tens of thousands of years later.
Play War Thunder now. Join millions of players across the globe in massive battles on
While it might have been fun at the time, interbreeding with Homo sapiens might not have ultimately been the best idea for the Neanderthals. The Neanderthal Y chromosome was not completely compatible with the Homo sapien Y chromosome. And as a result, if a Neanderthal male procreated with a Homo sapien female, the pregnancy would have frequently ended in a miscarriage. Population geneticist Fernando Mendez found the cause of the problem when he identified mutations on the Neanderthal Y chromosome that would trigger an immune response from a Homo sapien woman. If she became pregnant, the woman's immune system would kick in to protect her at the expense of the pregnancy. In fact, the problem may have been so pronounced that Neanderthals might have actually gone extinct after intermixing with Homo sapiens and essentially becoming absorbed into their group. As Homo sapiens tried to expand from Africa into Neanderthal territory in Europe and Asia, they might have ignited a struggle between the two groups that would last 100,000 years. That's a long struggle. In November 2020, evolutionary biologist and paleontologist Nicholas R. Longrich said that although it's tempting to think the two groups might have got along, biology and paleontology paint a darker picture.
Exactly what I'm trying to get at. So they're saying here, as y'all was keeping up, the saying is, sometimes, a lot of times when you have miscarriages, you may not know why you're having miscarriages, but your DNA does. They said on there, which is basically how we look at all things. Some computer upgrade softwares are not compatible with the older upgrades or older softwares. They were saying that if a Homo erectus male if a Homo erectus male had sex with a Neanderthal woman, the Homo erectus, that is the more But it's hard to argue if the Homo erectus is more advanced than Neanderthal, because it's argued that the Neanderthal was stronger. There's different things that made each one different and stronger, as you see in the races today. The Neanderthal, at certain points, maybe the Homo erectus may have been the dominant or the better software or whatever genetically. The Neanderthal had a mutant, was one that had a mutant DNA. The albino within the Homo sapiens also had a mutated DNA. So you get what I mean? So if you're one of the strains that doesn't have any of the mutated DNA or the mutant genome that's been altered or corrupted or whatever we want to describe it as, the dominant human grade, if a male Homo erectus has sex with a Neanderthal or Homo sapien albino, with a woman with a Neanderthal or Homo sapien albino Homo sapien woman, most likely they're gonna be compatible and they're gonna have a baby. Now, if a Neanderthal shot, because the male is putting his seed in, he's putting his key in. So the male is the dominant as far as the structures, what's good for creating the next lineage of mixing the softwares. It like the male is like the bodies, the dominant body is gonna reject it. All right, so say, look, a Neanderthal male or albino Homo sapien male has sex with a Homo erectus or normal Homo sapien woman. Often she'll have pregnant complications. She will lose the baby because her body, which has no mutant DNA, is rejecting. Her immune system is automatically rejecting it. It's going to cancel the baby because it thinks the mutant DNA is trying to harm her. So that's why you may get, for unfortunately, a lot of times different races have miscarriages, but they don't know why. Or even the same, I would think Homo erectus and a normal Homo sapien could still have problems interbreeding, but they don't have the mutant DNA genes, so they're easily compatible. Okay, let's go further. I mean, I just want to jump y'all with a little bit of my thoughts. Like, I know this is probably deep for a lot of y'all, but I know y'all keeping along. This is gonna blow the fucking waters, and all of you can check on the information. And so, what we're kind of summarizing is that the modern European is Neanderthal mixed with Japheth, and Japheth is of the Homo sapien, and Japheth is mainly the ones that was having the albino mutation in India, which later they spread all around and started pushing the white supremacy caste system. They were wandering towards those mountains where the Neanderthals were waiting, per se. Those monsters, that's why I said, Alan, you can't really. The Neanderthals might have been the Nephilim, might have been those gods and monsters that they were trying to kill with the floods, and some of them survived. And we'll get into deeper later on that. Forecast, Little Mermaid, hybrids, mixing with animals, creating beasts and monsters. So let's go.
Far from peaceful, Neanderthals were likely skilled fighters and dangerous warriors. Archaeological evidence indicates that Neanderthals used spears to hunt big game and dangerous warriors. Archaeological evidence indicates that Neanderthals used spears to hunt big game, which suggests that they likely also used such weapons to protect themselves. This is supported by the fact that both Neanderthal and Homo sapien prehistoric remains frequently show signs of skull and upper body trauma. Shanidar III, for example, a 40-year-old Neanderthal who lived in Iraq around 50,000 years ago, was slain after a spear pierced him through the rib cage. Anthropologists demonstrated that the weapon that took Shanidar III's life could have been a lightweight projectile spear. A Neanderthal jawbone discovered from a cave in southwestern France showed signs of being cut with a stone tool, indicating the Neanderthal child was likely slain and eaten.
Bien, amigo. Bien.
I can't follow you, and I'm not going to follow you and give you personal protection. Now, I'm telling you, for your own benefit, you had better turn around and get out of this area. You're not going to the courthouse in a group under the condition that you come here, and I'll assure you that.
All we would like to do, sir, is to go to the
Courthouse is closed. There's no business there.
We don't want to go in the courthouse. All we want to do is go to the lawn of the courthouse, kneel in prayer, and we'll gladly return.
You take your prayers back to your church. That's a proper place to pray.
Sir,
I'm sure that God will hear your prayer just as well down there as it will up here, but you're not going on this courthouse alone.
Sir, whenever there are men who are in sinful conditions, prayer should be uttered wherever they are.
Well, why don't you pray where you are? Go back down there and pray. You think you're lily white? You think you're not sinful?
No.
Well, then go back to your church and pray.
Well, sir, can we pray together, you and I?
You do your praying, I do mine, big boy. You don't pray for me. I don't want you to pray for me.
Well, will you pray for us?
Because I don't think your prayers get above your head.
Well, will you pray for us?
No, I'm not going to pray for you. I'll tend to my business, you tend to yours. Now, you better move these people out of here.
Sir,
I'm trying to protect you.
Sir, sir,
I don't have to love anybody I don't want to love.
Sir,
You do your own loving. You love your little niggas. I love who I please.
do you believe in equal justice for all?
I believe in justice.
Do you believe in equal justice?
I don't believe in equal nothing. There's no two people in this world alike, and they are not equal under any terms or conditions. There's no two peas in the world alike. No two pieces of money nor nothing else.
And sir, are you saying that if I have a quarter and I'm black and you have a quarter and you white, then my quarter isn't as worth as much as your quarter?
That's your quarter. I'll decide,
my quarter is worth?
I'll decide what my quarter is worth. You use yours and I'll use mine.
You buy you a catfish sandwich and yours.
What are we?
Everything in history tells you the white man crawled out of Africa. Everything in blood tells you the white man mated with a giant hairy beast. They tell you the bone structure, they make images and well aware, big awareness in white America that they're mixed with the Neanderthal.
In a remote corner of Turkey, 5 unusual siblings come to the attention.
Keep infecting. Again, the female can't.
The past. Their personal story is about to change forever. The family that walks on all fours.
As they do this rollover of amalgamation, they keep infecting. Again, the female can't infect you. It's the male that infects the female. This is the spread of seed. I've explained this many times. On top of that, you have people with blood of a fish. Listen, I'll always show you this shit because it's just too funny. And you just type in SLC 24A5. And a lot of people say, oh, black people are the X-Men, but they're not. They don't fucking, black people don't mutate. God's children don't mutate. The children of the devil, the children that have sulfur in their skin. Now remember, we watched Tyrone Street. He broke down the definitions of melanation and of the two beings, right? You got EU melanin or something like that, and they have what breaks down to sulfur. All right. SLC 24A5, affecting skin. Proteins, partially localized, blah, 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 affecting skin appears to have played the key role in the evolution of light skin in humans of European ancestry. Now, there's no such thing as European ancestry because the people of Europe came out of where? Africa. They tell you that in their own words. Not only have they somehow mated with Wookiee, they've also mated with fish. Now, this is one bloodline affected a long time ago, and as that bloodline grows, it spreads. Same with the Yeti banging.
But wait, what the fuck? Y'all fucking fish? That's kind of fucking. So you see what he's explaining right there when he was going into intermixing of different species is the same as what they saying with the Greeks and the mythology and things. How they show you right in their own storybooks and even in other culture storybooks how it was monsters and hybrids and minotaurs, mermaids. Poseidon and them was running around. We're gonna get into that. Poseidon probably running around getting some fucking human pussy. I mean, it is what it is. Like, shit, what the fuck? Like, I want some mermaid pussy. Why the fuck ain't nobody let me know about that? I'm trying to get in on that. A little dot. But we're gonna keep going in deeper what he mean. And see, back in the day, it was maybe a little different. The monsters and the humans was getting it in.
So, keep in mind what you're studying and how it affects what you're going to be studying. And just keep with the script because, you know, as you're going, you're then rewriting the script. And this is why it also says in Isaiah that you should be preaching, teaching, and writing books and publishing. Because everything that you're learning is completely different than what the European oppressor, that's not even fair to call them Europeans, what the Canaanite oppressor has taught you. Now, understand these people are amalgamated.
Good afternoon, Professor. I am sure that the viewers are looking forward to today's
topic is, why are Europeans white? Of course, the color white is merely a social designation. The real question is, why do Northern Europeans have such little pigmentation? Here is a map of human skin tone. The natives of Northern Europe are oddly light-skinned. They are paler than anyone else on Earth. Prehistoric groups that migrated towards the equator got darker. Prehistoric groups that migrated away from the equator got lighter. But this explanation fails for Northern Europe. Northern Europeans are lighter than everyone to the south, Mediterraneans, to the east, Mongols and East Asians, to the west, Native Americans across the Atlantic, and to the north, Inuit, Sami, Chukchi, Alot. Clearly, there once was a factor at work in Europe other than dim sunlight. Here is another map of skin tone. Again, the blob surrounding the Baltic Sea is like nothing else on the planet.
All right, so jump back in it. As you know, when I stop, and it's because a jewel is being slipped by your ears or your eyes, and you're not paying attention. All right, you want to see here exactly what he just said. It's very interesting going on around the Baltic Sea. As we see the Baltic Sea, or yeah, I think just the Baltic. Baltic is on this side. As you can see, something very interesting is going on in the Baltic Sea. That the fish in that area going through a lot of shit. I don't know what's going on. And maybe it might be some mermaids around there. Maybe we need to take a trip to the Black Sea, you know what I mean? Yeah. Fuck. Bachelor party. The Bachelor Part 5 to the Baltic Sea. Skeet in the CC. So, alright, let's go. It's like I say, I'm dropping shit. Y'all ain't gonna pick up to it probably like 1,000 years later. Y'all gonna understand what the fuck I was dropping on y'all heads. Let's keep it going.
That this pale population. Right. Here is another map of skin tone. Again, the blob surrounding the Baltic Sea is like nothing else on the planet. That this pale population surrounds the Baltic gives the first hint. It must have something to do with the oceans. It must have something to do with the oceans. It must have something to do with the oceans.
In zebrafish.
One more important piece of the puzzle was found in 2005 when cancer researcher Keith Chang was studying the black and white stripes of zebrafish.
There are a lot of zebrafish in my laboratory because I'm a geneticist and I study how mutations occur, which is how cancer occurs, and I use pigmentation to detect those mutations. By chance, the light skin-colored fish that I used for that research also taught us a lot about how Europeans, how humans became lighter skinned.
What Professor Chang discovered was perhaps one of the most important genetic mutations ever found. A single change among literally billions of coded instructions within zebrafish DNA that reduced black pigment from their stripes. Soon after, this identical genetic mutation was found in fair-skinned Europeans.
There was a magic moment in this research. When I got back the results that showed that the number and the size and the amount of pigment in the light-skinned zebrafish were all diminished, and the same thing happened in humans. When I opened the textbook and saw that same thing, I began to sweat. Not only did light-skinned people evolve from black-skinned people, but lighter-skinned people, whether they're European or whether they're Asian, like me, were actually mutants. We're actually mutants. We're actually mutants of the dark-skinned people.
This was remarkable because we had only inferred on the basis of circumstantial evidence that this must have occurred in evolution, but we didn't have any concrete genetic evidence. Now we do.
Now, all right. All right, we're back. I know I dropped a lot on y'all within 2 hours, but it ain't over yet because I'm gonna drop some more shit on y'all. This shit is fucking crack. I'm not even really going deep into this shit. Like, if I go in deep, you're gonna be like, yo, this motherfucker a genius. Like, well, let's start going over what they was talking about. They were talking about SLC 2485 gene. Look it up. Meaning those who have that gene have more sulfur. And that is the genetic mutation that he was describing in the fish. Remember I told you, different dominant species, you may be able to mix breed with another species or animal. If you have a dominant male species entering into a weaker one or a less evolved one, it still may carry a baby and create a mermaid. So let's go. All right. We wrapping up. Basically wrapping up everything we went over here because it's like it's a piece of cake and I'm not even really fucking going hard. Like, this is my first one, man. I don't even know when I'm gonna premiere. I don't even know if I'm going to premiere. It's just that fucking saucy. Like, y'all niggas is fucking cooked already. Like, I put enough on your brain for fucking a whole year to look at, and it's just a tad bit of the subject. Cause I'm going to dismantle the religious. Watch, I got this. It ain't even nothing. It's like a piece of fucking cake. All right, so we're gonna go over more of what we talking about and what we've been discussing and killing in the game so far is that there are 3 different sets of upgrades of humanity. They all came together and mixed together, created even beastier, mutant, Nephilim, who knows what you would describe them. Some sort of time they turned into tribes of Germanic tribes who were getting a little strong in the mountains, i.e. Lord of the Rings. And monster ass fucking armies was probably stronger than the motherfucking that time. It was a battle for Mordor, man. Motherfucking needed that ring, man. So they got real fucking beastie in the mountains, and the neighboring countries was like, hold the fuck up. Like, these motherfuckers wildin', let's seal them in. They tried to seal them in, and sometime during a natural disaster, that shit just didn't work no more. I'm trying to find a little bit more to give y'all, because I'm about to just wrap it up. I already got it's already fucking done deal. I get you one of these. Fuck your head up. I get you all of them.
At T-Mobile, we have a plan built just for customers 55 and up, saving 50% for
Homo fossils, including of ancestors for whom we can't find a home. And there's no official.
I already hit y'all with that. I'm gonna hit y'all a little bit of this. We are, like I said, I'm sure I'm describing that it looks like the Homo sapiens had a strain of albinoism that happened in them, and as they were traveling through the occupied land that the Homo erectus already previously occupied, through India and everything, they started mixing with them. Because I don't believe the albino strain was in the Homo erectus; it was in the Homo sapien. And as one of the theories, when we last left the Indus Valley, civilization there had ceased at about 1800 and 1700 BC, perhaps because of some unknown natural disaster. If rainfall declined in the Indus region between 1800 and 1700 BC, then around 1500 BC, it increased again, making the Indus plain better able to support life. So they were saying about 2,000 years ago, some crazy ass natural disaster happened that ceased the area. That might tie in with the Noah's flood, but we'll go in deeper on that too. We'll try to link all these when it's time of each civilization when they had their disaster and what it caused. So probably shut Homo erectus down for a little bit, probably wiped them out a lot. But then here comes Homo sapien, later created by the Anunnaki, which we're going in deeper later. They start running through the area probably right around after that disaster, but probably some Homo erectus still alive. They probably mixed in with a little bit of them. That might have caused the fucking even further mutations, but we'll go in that deeper on that. 1500, 1200 BC, that the Dravidian albinos, who had originally migrated from Africa, like I said, it was in Africa. Homo sapiens albino strain popped out of the Homo sapien. They had to get out of Africa. It was hot. And then continued North and Central Asia to escape the burning sunshine. Found at lower altitudes. Returned to India. Here you see the strain of the Indian albino. It doesn't not so much yet look like the full today's modern European strain, but it looks more like the Iraqi, the Irani, the Arabic strain. Remember I say they were in that, they wandered towards them Caucasus Mountains, and Caucasus Mountains right above Iran and Iraq and ancient Sumeria. So they wandered that area, mixed in with a little bit, but mainly probably not so much. And they are predominantly the modern day Arabs. The original Arabs, we will kind of describe more as maybe they were more Ham. I believe Ham was more stayed in the area of Lebanon and Israel, as opposed more to entering Africa, because I believe Homo erectus was still occupying Africa at the time of Shem, Ham, and Japheth. I believe Homo erectus was still alive. They were the original pharaohs, and so let's keep going deeper. All right, let's go down. As you see, different examples of albinoism in India, where they're pinpointing that the first the main combination of Caucasian human came from, that migrated to the Caucasus Mountains and met the Neanderthals. You know what I mean? Alright, pretty much all things you know about. Skin cancer afflicts them, freckles, different things. May have been best described as leprosy in biblical times. Okay, let's keep going. Unlike their normally pigmented brother who stayed behind in India, remember they moved up through India from Africa, and they kept moving up because it's hot. Stayed behind in India. They had not evolved into a civilized people. They had not developed a written language. Can you remember that a lot of that, when it was combined, when they was getting locked in them in the Caucasus Mountains with them giant walls, they didn't have a written language yet. They were more roaming around. They probably said, fuck written language, fuck carving on walls, fuck any of that. We going to the next land, conquer that shit, and keep it the fuck moving. I guess that was the mind state of each evolution of grade of human. They were just a little too hungry, too powerful. Alright, so let's go. They returned to India's illiterate pastoral people, now called Aryans. Dun dun. That Aryan nation, that supremacy mind state ideology is coming out of India. They migrated from the steppe. If you looked earlier, you seen that pop up. They're from the steppe lands of Central Asia through what is now Afghanistan, down through the Khyber Pass and onto the sparsely populated Indus Plain. So we can look, they went up towards the Caucasus Mountains. As you see, different more examples of albinoism. Nothing too major. Alright. We're gonna see later, Chechas. If you go later, stick around for my videos, you'll see these names are popping up over and over. And as you start to understand who these Germanic tribes were, they were comprised of all these different mixed breed genomes and grades of humans, all mixing and coming together in that Caucasus Mountain area. And they just They just got a little bit too barbarian out. I don't know what the fuck to tell you. Like, he was some gangsters, some motherfucking mountain gangsters. All right, Europeans, Indians, divided or united by DNA. Same thing. They're basically going to go into. They're basically the same. It's slightly different, but they combine. Two different types of mutant species, mutated species combined. And as you see, they're showing pictures of the original Homo erectus. I believe this is the original Homo erectus that occupied the land. They had straighter hair. They were real dark. They say the Homo erectus was the darkest per se first that left out of Africa and migrated. And they had straighter hair. That's why, like I said, I don't believe to say check the hair. We're going different. You're going to keep hearing me say check the hair. The straight hair might have been the Homo erectus, dark grade of human. And that's why I said I don't believe that what they call the African American melanated person, which I believe is mainly the strain of the Shem of the Homo sapien. We'll get in that later, that they left out of Egypt and left out of Europe and they went towards America. That's why we're going to go into that deeper too. It might have been flipped the other way. But as I said, I don't believe the African American melanated man is the Homo erectus. That's why we always say, like, damn, them Africans, the Homo erectus, they don't feel like they with us. Why they ain't come and get us? Why I feel like when we them, but we ain't them. Like, it always a vibe that like we different. Something's different about us, and I'm trying to break that down to y'all. That the Homo erectus is more the initial African, the Indian, the dark Indian. The Homo sapien created later, upgraded later by the Anunnaki, became Shem, Ham, and Japheth. Shem being the Hebrews and the Israelites, why we keep having a feeling that maybe that's us. Yeah, they went into Egypt, and maybe they, who knows, the Shem might have been more albino, but Shem into Egypt, but slaved the Egyptians, may have got a little bit of that darkness added back into them. We'll go into deeper in that later. But when they left in Exodus out of Egypt, is a different theory that they went more, the Sephardic Jews, or they more went into Europe and went more towards Africa, like more towards not Africa, more towards Americas, the Caribbeans. So we'll go into that even deeper. But let's see, we're gonna wrap up, because I've been killing y'all. I killed y'all. Y'all fucking dead already. I murked y'all. Back there, I just wanted to emphasize that maybe we go in deeper and see these stories and why these stories was like this. These legends. Alright, so let's wrap it up. I ain't rolled over y'all, and I'm just calmly rolling over y'all. I'm not even like, I'm not even really trying that hard. Alright. So to sum it up, if Homo sapiens, more melanated, hit Egypt about 200,000 years ago, and Neanderthals left Africa, and what they call Africanus, that's why that European came back and named Africa Africanus. He trying to tell y'all that initially we part Neanderthal, we came out of Africa. Second, it went to Caucasus area. Homo erectus became India, Asia. Let's get the map up for you. Came India, Asia.
India, Asia, China. Homo erectus became India, Asia, and China. I'm starting to look at it like Homo erectus left first, and then Neanderthal, and then Homo sapien. So we're gonna try to get them timelines correct in a little later videos. Homo erectus became India, Asia, and China, Siberia, the Mongoloids, but they were still very melanated.
It went all up ahead.
Then mixed with the Neanderthals in the Caucasus Mountains. I believe a little bit, but not really per se. I believe more the Homo sapien and the albino. They may have mixed more with the Homo erectus, and then that combination went on to the Neanderthal and mixed with them and created it like a beastie. And the fucking mutant turtles and shit in the mountains and shit. Alright, let's keep going. Let's just keep going along with my notes. In the Caucasus area, creating Caucasians who may have mixed with animal species or something, causing mutation of skin, eyes, hair, DNA. Then they became a horde. We're going to go into more of what happened in the story of Yakub and Jacob a little later, of the grafting and eugenics. And we're going to go deeper into how you can graft the race, how you can control the genetics. You can force evolution and mutation if you keep, like they say, if you keep having incest with your family, you're going to create some type of mutated, because you're banging the wrong species together. The wrong DNAs that keep trying to be slammed and spliced together, and is going to cause problems. So this is what is happening. Some good and some bad. The mutations are good and bad. X-Men, baby. But let's go. Alright, so saying here, something causing mutations, skin, eyes, hair, DNA. Then they became a horde and was defeated by Alexander. Maybe. They saying that he may have died before they were, but he probably whooped their ass the first time, like fall back. This is some real Game of Thrones shit, man. We're gonna put it laid out for you soon. And then the walls were built to seal the Caucasian horde barbarian monsters. They was calling this horde the blind horde. But then most of them was probably blind from all the mutation and mixing. Horde barbarians, monsters, and warlike tribes. They were building these walls to keep these Germanic tribes sealed. Trying to keep them sealed in there. The North Caucasus. Alright. These warlike Germanic tribes in the Caucasus Mountains region between the Baltic and the Caspian Sea. It was later named the Black Sea. Look at that, Ashkenazi. We're gonna go into that. There's so many jewels. Like, I can go in so deep on each, just anything on this. Maybe some sort of tsunami. Maybe some sort of tsunami or earthquake. A disaster. A natural disaster or something happened, and like, I'll make mic check real quick. A tsunami, earthquake. Like I said, where's my notes? Earthquake around 365 AD caused the walls to first fail when keeping them in at the gates. There are different names for these gates, so it was like 3 or 4 different gates. Walls of Alexander. They were gonna call them all the walls of Alexander. It says caused the wall or to fall or be unguarded. Whatever earthquake or tsunami happened in that year of 365, around 365, it caused the walls to be unguarded, and the horde, reminds me of the Lord of the Rings, you know what I'm saying, escaped and invaded Europe and Asia. Europe that was occupied by blackamoors, black royal Jews and Muslims. Whenever the nomadic tribes, Caucasians, invaded and killed Europe or anywhere, they assimilated the indigenous people and stole the indigenous people culture, history, their religion, their names, their surnames, their language. And we'll go deeper in that. A lot of the European names that we go by, call the modern day Europes now, they were originally the indigenous people. And we're going to try to figure out if those original melanated people of Europe were Homo erectus, or were they a lot of Homo sapien from Shem and Ham line. But we're going deeper on that. So basically, these Germanic tribes invaded Europe, assimilated the culture. So I'm a little on the fence now, because at this time, the melanated people of Europe were worshiping black deities and pictures of black Jesus and different things. So we're gonna go in deeper on that. Was Jesus real, or was they the ones? The Council of Nicaea is looking close to the Council of Nicaea was melanated and black also, which is very deep and alarming. We'll go deeper into that on why they were trying to deity and make deities out of different things they were learning out of Egypt. All right. If you want to go deeper, you see all Europeans are from one race, species, evolution. And that they're from one race, species, evolution, or de-evolution genetically. They're just different tribes who claimed and stole different areas of Europe from blackamoors, or melanated rulers and kings at the time. Not sure if Moors are Ham or Shem, but we're going to go into that, or if they're Homo erectus, but we'll go deeper. Interesting that the European Caucasian history, myths, and legends all tell us this, that they know all those Vikings movies, Greek monsters mythology, barbarian tales, Dungeons and Dragons, Lord of the Rings movies, and ogres and giants on the battlefield, caveman themes, mermaids and minotaurs, all those amazing folklore movies, they were just telling you the truth. Make sure you want to go deeper into Greek gods and monsters to figure out what was actually happening in that time, in that era of ancient medieval times. It just makes me want to go deeper down the rabbit hole.